Hi everybody, my name is Don Carlisle. I'm a certified safety professional with Key Safety, and I just wanted to, I'm trying to do a few YouTube videos here, particularly to help illuminate and to show some processes here that hopefully folks can use on their own. I get a lot of questions from companies, especially when I start to work with them, talking or asking about some of the citations that they have and how common they are, or even I'll get questions from new safety professionals asking, hey, where do I even begin? Do I worry most about lockout tagout? Do I worry most about heat illness? Where should I even begin? What should be my priorities in my particular industry? And so I just wanted to take a minute and kind of show for those of you that, or maybe you're just a person in your company that's recently been assigned safety and health kind of duties, or maybe this is something that you're responsible for in a new company. And so this is a great way to kind of get a start and to get a handle on, hey, what are the priorities? Or at least let's take a look and look at the different industries and look at the most frequently cited standards within that industry or within your particular organization. And that way you'll have some kind of idea of what inspectors are seeing, at least when they visit the type of companies that you're working at, which is a whole lot better than just looking at kind of the top 20, which are kind of an aggregate of all companies within OSHA. And a lot of times that's what we tend to look at, especially in classes or other safety and health professionals. A lot of times we'll talk a lot about what are the top 10 or top 20 most frequently cited standards, and they tend to focus in on that. And while that can be helpful to a large degree, a lot of times within industries they're not all that helpful. And so let's take a look here. I'm going to bring up this is a listing actually from a UC Davis course, and this talks about, in California, this is OSHA's top 25 violations in 2010. Now this has changed a little bit in the last however many years, but this should still give you an idea of kind of where we're at. So the number one is an injury and illness prevention program. That is still the case actually today, which we'll take a look at. Heat illness actually is another one that's very high up on the list right now, mainly because there's been a lot of regulatory changes in that environment. OSHA, especially this time of year, in the summertime, is really focused in on strengthening that heat illness piece. But when we look down on here, we'll see construction injury and illness prevention program, hazardous communication, lockout, tagout, portable fire extinguishers, failure to report, this is another big one, respiratory protection, air tanks, electrical equipment. So these are fairly common. But again, then we go down, we see emergency eye wash stations, first aid in construction, forklift operator training, compressed gas, electrical cords, etc., etc. We start to miss some of these things that come out more importantly in different industries. And we'll try to see if we can find some more examples of that later on. So one of the places that we're definitely going to go for this information is actually an OSHA site, a federal OSHA site. And this is this particular site is talking about the different frequently cited OSHA standards. And so when we take a look at this, we certainly we want to narrow this down to California. So there's one thing we're going to do. The other thing we're going to do is we can even look at 250 or above, or we can look at select the number of employees in establishment. I like to leave it on all because that way we're going to try to get a nice broad picture here. And then the other thing that we're really trying to look for is the NAICS Code, and that's the North American Industry Classification System. So what's great about this is we definitely want to narrow it down. That's kind of the whole point of looking at this video and trying to decide, hey, if I'm in, I actually have an example of janitorial services, but if I'm in janitorial services, what are the things that I'm going to care about, or what are the things that I need to worry about more specifically? So let's take a look at this really quickly, and let's bounce around a little bit. So I'm going to go to a different website, and this website is actually the NAICS Association. I know I'm going to say that 6 times fast and confuse everybody. But basically what we want to do, if we're looking for a particular industry, we want to find our code, our NAICS code. And so there's a couple of different ways that we can get there. We can either go to a code list, we can crosswalk it to a SIC code, but one of the better ways is basically just to say, look, we're going to do a search word. And let's take a look. Let's think of something that we can plug in here. So let's see what's around me here. What are things that we frequently visit? We can think about a grocery store. We can think about auto dealership. Actually, let's take a look. Let's maybe look at auto and see what pulls up here. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes in here. And we can scroll down, and we can definitely certainly try to find all the different industries here that have auto in it. And a lot of these are going to connect with auto manufacturing and different things. So this may be a little bit too broad. But let's back up. Let's talk about, let's say auto, let's say dealership would be in there now. So we'll have to take a look at that a little bit more specifically here. But here, give me 1 second. Let me find some good one. Okay, so I went ahead and just plugged in school was actually the term that I plugged in there just because I happen to be working with a school recently. So what we'll do is we'll kind of scroll down and we see right here elementary and secondary schools, and this is a good one. So if we look at elementary and secondary schools, we see they have a code of 611110. So let's take a peek at that, and there's junior colleges there as well. So this right here is what we're looking for. So let's say we're going to talk or look at elementary and secondary schools. So now that we have the NAICS code, we can hop back and look at the most frequently cited standards, and we can paste that. We can paste that right here. So again, we're looking at California. We want to look at all sizes. This is the number of employees in the establishment, and then we can submit that. So from here, all of a sudden, we get a very specific look about what were the most frequently cited standards. And what's great here is it tells us right here, listed below are the standards which were cited by California OSHA for the specified NAICS code during the period of October 2014 to September 2015. Now, this is not the most updated data, but this certainly gives us a full year, pretty recent data, right, of what was the most frequently cited standards. Now, so for those of you out there, if you happen to be working for a school, you're going to see that there was 60 inspections with schools. That's actually quite a bit. So schools, especially elementary and secondary schools, this isn't even getting to the junior college level or the university level, but just elementary and secondary schools. Lots of inspections, lots of penalties that are out there. So one of the differences between the looking at federal OSHA data and California data, as you can see, there's lots of citations that are in here. But we'll start to see here very rapidly, at least at the top, we can see total number of, at least we have our total aggregate numbers here, so the number of citations and the inspections that are given, and then the total penalty. But then, of course, we start breaking it down, and we see very rapidly, we can see the number of citations and then the number of inspections. And this is what we really want to talk about here. One of the differences, though, when you look at California data as opposed to Fed OSHA data, is there are not going to be any descriptions here within the particular citation. So these citations are hyperlinked. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's take a look at these. If I see this right here, we can see it's kind of broken apart. We see 3203A. So if I click on that, it's going to give me an establishment size for all sizes. It's going to give me that particular data for all the sections combined. So in this particular case, this is showing you 556 citations and 477 inspections, a penalty of almost $1 million here. This is for all industries. And this will break it down if you want to get into some of these other ones. But again, we're trying to be specific, not broad here. So let's go ahead and back up and get back into schools. Okay, so when we look at this, though, we want to take a lot of you are not going to memorize every single one of these particular codes. I know that I don't have them all memorized. I think that, I mean, certainly some of these jump out and are very easy to see, but we want to go through and take a look at some of these that are certainly more expensive. So a couple of ways, especially, so let's use this particular example and say that you're a new school administrator and you know, or you're in charge now of safety and health at your particular school. So a couple of things that we really want to look at here is actually two things. The first thing we want to look at is the frequency of citations, which is going to be the number of citations and the number of inspections. And then the other thing we're really going to want to look at, of course, is the penalty amount. Because you can have a whole bunch of these. So let's have three inspections, three citations with a total penalty of $150. And I don't want to say we don't want to care about that particular citation or that particular element, which most likely 3203B was it's a technical error in their injury and illness prevention program. But right here, we're going to see citations that are much higher. So 3 citations with a dollar amount of $19,000. So clearly some of these, or even this one up right here, 3395, 4 different citations, 2 different inspections, a penalty of $20,000. So not only do we care about frequency, we also care about basically severity. And so the severity here in the penalty column is what we're really going to try to pay attention to. So with each industry, what I'll typically do is cut and paste or copy and paste all of this information up here. So I can just grab it and scroll down and grab this data that's right here, and I'll copy it. And then what I'll do is I actually open up a new Excel spreadsheet. Let me open up a new one here. So open up a new one, and then literally what I'll do is I'll just make sure that I try to match the destination formatting, which will allow me to kind of get a nice clean version of it. Now I believe here I'm using Excel. I think it's either might be 2013, maybe 2016. So as long as you have a somewhat newer version of Excel, this is not going to be too different. So a couple of ways that you can deal with this is that, of course, you can you can filter and sort with Excel, which is always fantastic. So if we go up to sort and filter, we can custom sort this. And one of the handy things here is that I can say, sorry, I'm trying to bring this out. So the column that we really care about here, of course, is going to be our sort by penalty, and then sort on values, and then actually we want to go largest to smallest. Here we go. Okay, so this now gives us a slightly different picture. So as we look at this, we can see certainly 3203 is going to be our injury and illness prevention program. Big amount, lots of citations, lots of penalties. So this is going to be up there. The other ones are going to be 342, which I believe is the failure to report, if my memory serves me correctly. And then we have 3395, and we'll take a look at a couple of these here just as an exercise. And then we start to get down, so 3203A, again, more injury and illness prevention program here, 10 citations, but a much lower fine. So this does not bring quite as many red flags, or I should say, we're going to get a citation. It'd be very rare for you to go into an OSHA visit and not get some kind of citation. But what we're really trying to avoid, of course, are big ones. Big fines, big serious violations are the ones that we really want to stay away from. General, de minimis, or just simple regulatory violations, not quite so bad. So let's take a peek. So now that you've gone in, you've looked at you found your NAICS code, you've actually gone into OSHA's website and you have found the most frequently cited standards within your particular NAICS code, and now you have this great listing. Now you've created an Excel spreadsheet that shows your particular NAICS code. Now we need to kind of drill a little bit deeper and say, okay, now what are each of these things? How do I find out? And again, unless you have all these memorized, you're going to have to jump back and forth. So let's take a pick. We do know that 3203A, and unfortunately this is cut off a little bit, so but we can take a look here in just a second. So let's take a look at 3203A. So one way we can do that is we can actually go to the Cal OSHA Department of Industrial Relations webpage, and there is a search for regulations here. And this is an extremely handy place, and a lot of times you can very quickly nail it down or drill down very, very quickly here. So let's go ahead and type in 3203. Now a lot of times it'll bring up other things here, so sometimes you may have to kind of scroll down and find exactly what it is that you're looking for. And this one is fairly down on the list. But here we go. So we're looking for California Code of Regulations, Title 8, Section 3203, Injury and Illness Prevention Program. So let's take a look at the regulation here. So we know this is Injury and Illness Prevention Program. And there's lots of information on this particular standard. And they have lots of different models, which we can get into later. But they're looking at 3203A. And 3203A is here. So it's effective July 1st. Every employer shall establish, implement, and maintain an effective injury and illness prevention program. Now, most likely in this particular example, when we looked at our Excel spreadsheet, I'm going to jump back to here, we see 3203A, and it's some other additional piece on that paragraph. So what we're going to be looking for is I hop back here, so 3203A, and it's either 1, 2, or 3. So it's very likely that one of these pieces, right, was not correct. And this could also be, and as we see oftentimes, is that many places will have an injury and illness prevention program, but the person listed with the authority and responsibility for implementing the program either won't be listed or they'll be out of date. It may be Jim or Sally or Susan or Maria, who was there 5 years ago, who is no longer there, has been promoted to a different position. And if that information is not up to date, then the inspector or whoever else is there automatically knows that the rest of the program is not up to date and it's not working, it's not a living document, it's actually being implemented. So okay, so this shows us this first one here. We can very quickly take a look. Okay, 3203, this is what I'm looking for. And we can go back to, let's say, a new search. And let's find another one here. Oh, that's not the one I want to see. We'll talk about that one in a minute. 342A. Now, I know 342A is reporting, so let's drill down a little bit further. Let's look at 3395H. So again, so we're going to look back here. Excuse me, let's go 3395. So 3395 is heat illness prevention. And this does not surprise me with schools because most of the time a lot of the workers, at least the maintenance workers, and a lot of the people that are going to be involved, at least as far as employees, are going to be working outside. So this, if I believe correctly, if I remember here, this was 3395H. So let's see what 3395H. So we know that this is heat illness prevention. Let's scroll all the way down and see if we can't find subparagraph H, and that is going to be training. So we automatically start to see very quickly, at least in schools, we see injury and illness prevention program, we see a failure to report, and then we get into heat illness, and there's no training records. So very, very quickly, you're a new safety professional, you've just arrived at the school, we automatically can see very, very rapidly, because we can take a lot more time going through each of these, but we see very, very rapidly we have three main priorities. Number one, making sure that you have an injury and illness prevention program. Two, making sure that's up to date and the person is identified that's responsible, and all of a sudden we need to worry about heat illness training. So just right off the bat, we have a really clear kind of path of the things that we really need to worry about right off the top. So let's look at a couple more really, really briefly here. Again, this is 3312A. So let's pull up 3312A. Let's scroll back to the top here. We can go back and back. And now let's look at 3312. And 3312 is entering combustion chambers, flues, boilers, or unified steam pressure vessels. So this was a little more complicated, but certainly this right here, let's look at this particular thing. Now let me see if there's a subparagraph involved. I was trying to remember here. So 3312A. And it looks like there's a little bit more here, although it's cut off, which is fine. So let's go back. So, oh, I'm sorry, 3212. Whoops, goofed. Sorry about that. Sorry, hang on, here, pause here for just a second. Okay, sorry about that. I got my 2s and 3s mixed up here. But let's back up here. So now we've gone back here in 3212. So let's take a look at 3212. Let's see. There we go. Floor openings, floor holes, skylights, and roofs. So here we go. So I believe it's 3212A. Let's make sure we got the right one here. 3212A, and then some other subsection, which we don't know quite yet. But certainly we can see very rapidly every floor and roof opening shall be guarded by a cover, guardrail, or equivalent on all open sides. While the cover is not in place, the opening shall be constantly attended by someone or shall be protected by guardrails. Now, those of you that are in the safety and health field will know that skylights are extremely dangerous, and this is most likely connected to that. You may need to do a little bit more research when you see a particular regulation like this, but this should certainly start you on the path to say, hey, look, if we have floor openings or skylights or something else along that particular path, there needs to be guardrails on there. And this is also dealing with, fall protection, every ladderway, floor opening, or platform with access provided by a ladderway, including ship stairs, shall be protected by guardrails with tow boards, etc., etc. The good news here is that you're going to start to drill down and start to really see, right, what the regulation is and be able to understand it. Now, there's a lot here, but this at least gives you the path to start. So hopefully this is making sense for you. And hopefully this is helpful for you, and at least for those of you that are potentially new safety and health folk that are, or at least new to a particular industry, this will give you something to kind of put your foot forward and actually start along a path. This at least helps you. Now, this is not the end-all to be-all, but this will give you a sense, at least of what other inspectors, at least Cal OSHA inspectors, are going to schools and going to locations, and this is what they're saying, as opposed to just taking some kind of general top 20 issue, which of course skylights are not going to be in the top 20 issue, but this is a huge issue for your particular industry. So skylights, very, very dangerous, and this is going to be right here. There's been 3 inspections, 3 citations, and almost $20,000 worth of fines. So this is clearly an issue. This is, of course, is number 4 on the list, but not number 4 on our UC Davis side here, because it's not there. Again, we're showing some of the differences here between a kind of general Cal OSHA list and an industry-specific list. So here we go. And then let me pop up one other thing here. I just happen to have it up because of something I was working on, I think, maybe a day or 2 ago. And this is a janitorial list. So this is something that I've kind of put together. I've organized a little bit, and I've tried to look at the same way. So for janitorial services, and a lot of times I'll use some of Excel's particular functions to help me visualize some of the data here. And it'll help me see very rapidly, like, 3 inspections, $11,000. Again, same thing. This is reporting work-connected fatalities and serious injuries. But a lot of times I'll actually take the data after I look up each of these, and I'll kind of paste in what it is that I'm looking for. Same thing, very specific. So window cleaning, about boatswain's chairs and controlled descent apparatuses. The other thing that we start looking at this is we'll start looking at elevated work platforms, which makes sense in a janitorial service, especially if you're trying to clean something at height. And then, of course, other things that we have is powered industrial trucks, which are another one. And then another big one right here, bloodborne pathogens, hepatitis B vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully that gives you a sense. Again, this is a very quick video. This is only about 20 minutes, very quick examples, but hopefully this will start to show you how is it that you even get started. Where do I start if I'm new to a particular industry, or if I'm a new safety person on site and I've just been given a responsibility to kind of handle safety and health services for a company or a new industry, something along those lines. Really helpful sources that are out here are going to be your actual most frequently cited standards. This is going to be actually a federal OSHA site, and this is the frequently cited OSHA standards. But what we do is once we arrive here, we say, well, we're in California, we have a state plan, we have Cal OSHA, not Fed OSHA, and so we want to see what is it that Cal OSHA is seeing in my particular industry. And what we do is we'll drill down to California, we'll make sure we plug in the proper NAICS code, and I can find that from the NAICS Association. Most of these things can be available via Google. What I will try to do is include links also at the below the YouTube page here so that most people can actually go to them. And then once we find the frequently cited standards and we get them here, I can actually take this data, copy and paste it into an Excel spreadsheet, which allows me to kind of work with the data to sort it a little bit differently and actually maybe even type some of that stuff up. And then once I'm there, I can actually go to Cal OSHA's webpage and I can start to do a search on Cal OSHA's Title 8 regulations. And I can start to drill down and find out what each of these things that are frequently cited, and I can start to go through there and find the actual regulation. Again, the good news is this gives me at least a starting point, something to work from and to move forward from, so I'm not just kind of walking around trying to find stuff as I go along, which is not always the best thing. And then finally, you can also do some other analysis, which is always helpful to kind of judge where you are. And I'll try to do this as a separate video, but you can try to judge, hey, where am I at as far as injury and illnesses? What is my incident rate? How do I compare to other industries? And that can also be done through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which we could show here. That's a little bit more sophisticated. I would definitely say that that's kind of the next step. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I'm going to try to do a bunch more dealing with some different topics, and hopefully you can find this helpful. And always, definitely comment below in those areas. Let me know what else you'd like to see. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. But hopefully this is a way for you to get started and for you to take some information and to kind of go to the next step, at least in an informed way by looking at what's been happened historically here. Okay, thanks a lot, and thanks for watching.